The Locked On Podcast Network presents the Big 6 in 60. The 6 biggest national sports stories from the local experts of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the real story, why it matters, what's next, who wins the big game, and more, all in 60 minutes. The Big 6 in 60 starts now with the biggest story in sports.
Undefeated on the road, Houston takes it in Lubbock 69-61.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars.
In a dogfight of a road game, Houston improves to 9-0 on the road, undefeated on the road thus far. Just one more road game to go, one true road game to go, that is. I would argue the Big 12 tournament's kind of an Iowa State, Kansas State kind of home game, but that's not here nor there. This is tremendous. We got a bunch of people commenting already in the show notes here. So much to say about this one. I want to talk about Milos a lot. Milos Uzan, career high 22 points, or at least a Houston career high. I don't know what the Oklahoma career high was. I just too excited to look that up right now. Big time performance out of Milos in this one as we talk about this live, breaking it down after the game. He was super aggressive early, super aggressive late, picked his spots. X factors across those. And I thought Emmanuel Sharp put his imprints on this one, a couple big threes, a couple big defensive plays. Jawan Roberts, big time baskets inside. And Jawan Roberts went 10-12 from the free throw line when it mattered the most. 10 of the 16 points from the charity stripe. I mean, just like big time performance. Malik Wilson's 6 points felt weirdly important when they happened too. Like I can actually in my head pick out each of those different layups. Or the 2 layups and the free throws on the foul one. But like either way, he's just like a true team culture effort on the road in Lubbock. I know they're down a couple guys. You know what? I don't seem to have a lot of sympathy for that after people didn't seem to have a lot of sympathy for Houston losing guys a year ago, right? The truth of the matter is that some of these top programs, Houston, Texas Tech, Iowa State, Arizona, this top portion of the Big 12, they all play with nicks, knacks, and bruises, and guys missing games here, guys missing games there, and find ways to win. Houston won this conference doing that a year ago. That's the way this goes, man. Now, I got a lot of people flying in with reactions here. Joe Bless's incredible game. Team is so clutch. Milos and Roberts, especially. Roberts had tough defenders on him, but pushed through and manned up for free throw line. Francis also key. Francis, I thought, played really, really well. Longtime listener Adrian points out all I heard tonight was Tech's injured players. Missed me with all that. No one made excuses for U of H when they had major injuries a year ago. 9-0 road dogs. Agreed. Adrian Ken chimes in as well. What a dogfight. Let's take that number 1 seed. We're coming for the back door into that number 1 seed as well. We'll see when March Madness rankings get going. TI7791 says defense stayed the course, about as good as you're going to get. Really wish we weren't working tomorrow. LOL. Yeah, that 8 a.m. class is going to be hard to teach. Again, teacher and coach, that 8 a.m. class is going to be hard to teach in the morning, but I don't care. I mean, I have a nice little U of H polo on right here when I walk into class, and I'm just going to be beaming. Houston's Big 12 champs after that one. Oh, man, what a game. John points out here that Cryer looked a little tired. Cryer had the game of the season for him over the weekend to win that one for Houston with 28 points. He had just 5 in this one. I think it's fair to say, like, the expending of all that effort over the weekend led to his 31 minutes, which was the least of any starter not named JoJo Tugler in this one. Kind of probably did weigh heavily on his legs. That's probably a fair assessment. Ultimately, though, Houston manages to get the win. Doesn't matter where it comes from, to find another guy to get in the backpack and say, take us to victory. It's been Jawan Roberts before. We've seen Emmanuel Sharp hit big threes. We've seen LJ Cryer do it a couple times. And tonight, Monday night, big Monday in front of the whole nation watching premier ESPN time slot, the guy was Milos Uzan. Continues the point guard legacy, frankly, that Houston has been building. I'm not going to post this one from Walter because it kind of almost swears, but those toughest team wins t-shirts certainly don't look great when you don't win. Ken points out here, Miles' game has grown so much. Can you believe go back and read? I'm not going to go back and do it because I want to embarrass anybody. Go back and read those comments on these episodes back in like November when people were like, this guy's not going to work. We have no point guard. Oh my God. Like people were freaking out because Milo stepped in and had to replace Jamal Shed and was not quite Jamal Shed yet. Really, really tough and a ton of growth out of that guy. We'll talk more about him in the second segment. I want to talk about other guys as well here. I want to give some props in this as we're reacting at the start to Javier Francis. Francis in this one had just 2 points. It was a nice post move inside. Played 19 minutes. 6 rebounds, a big block. I felt like a lot of what Francis did, though, was stuff that doesn't show up in the stat sheet, right? Deterring at the rim, helping tag the roller, playing a nice like in between two guys from the help side spot to kind of defend two bigs when like Robert, someone's out doubling. Francis did so much in this one. Again, limited time, just 19 minutes. He and Tugler split the full 40 at that center spot. But like I think we take it for granted because the culture that Kelvin Sampson's built, right? That like, of course, a starting center is going to get moved to the backup spot and just like perform excellently in that role of the course of his probably final season playing college basketball. And like, of course, that's just going to work out super well for Houston. We take that for granted. I want to stress that this kind of thing will not happen at most other programs or with most other kids. This speaks highly to Javier Francis, highly to the culture that Sampson's built. And frankly, has been so important in what they do because Tugler can't shake the foul bug. He had no fouls in the first half and fouled out with all 5 fouls happening in the second half. Francis really stepped up in a big way. And again, like the big block was timely. He covered JT Toppin for stretches, the best player at Tech. JT Toppin, a lot of effort and like visibly was like just working his butt off. And I don't mean this in a discrediting way. The dude had 14 points on 18 shots. That's Houston defense. That's all that is, right? Houston made that man work. And it wore him down. It wore him down. Admittedly, with their injuries, they were down to just a 6-man rotation. And we've been there before. So I'm not, again, you got to win however it plays out. And that Houston's been there as well. But Juan chimes in Houston because that's just the name of the game. Is Houston wins these kinds of games. Houston wins the game over the weekend, the same kind of thing. Man, what a win to officially seal the share at least of the Big 12 title, regular season title that is this season. Hard to imagine they don't win one of the next 3 games and get it outright as well, but really separated yourself from the pack. There's all kinds of time between now and Selection Sunday to talk about like, does this backdoor you into a 1 seed and all that kind of stuff. And, you know, you're currently ranked 6th on the different metrics or whatever, as far as what could come to make you the second highest 2 seed, but there's a couple SEC teams that'll probably beat one another and yada, yada, yada. Tonight, just enjoying this one is, I think, the name of the game. Matt points out that it's about time the other guys who are the ones who are shorthanded, and I have to, after watching Terrence and Tugler and ultimately Jamal as well, all those guys go down. Ramon goes down every year, it feels like. I mean, I have to agree.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get internet than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Tuesday night has the game everyone is talking about on the docket. Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers are 8-point favorites at home versus the Dallas Mavericks. Elsewhere in the evening, the Cavs are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Orlando. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make everyone more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
The NFL offseason is about to kick off in earnest at the Combine.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast.
So I came to Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans, and I thought, how can I find a guest who's going to maximally enrage two fan bases at the same time?
Yeah.
And I found Adam Rank.
Even my own.
Exactly right. That's
They're
what I mean.
like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you doing? No, because like the Commander fans were already over me. Poor JP over at whatever station in Washington had me on. He posted a photo of us. I've never seen a ratio that hard for something of innocuous of just a photograph. Like my literal image caused people pain and consternation, much like it will be today.
Yeah. I bow before that level of haterade that is being poured.
It's heel heat.
Yeah.
You know, I will say though, if you ever wanted to go to the Westfield Mall in Schaumburg, might not be a great place for you. Just saying, like, listen, game recognizes game in a way.
Listen, Schaumburg, it's a beautiful town.
It is.
But I would probably be making sure I had a friend with me.
I would think so. That's probably a good idea. Have some sort of security detail just in case my Uncle Gene was out there rolling around.
So this is the fun part of Packers Bears right now in this moment, because the Bears, I'm already getting tweets about like Bears are undefeated against the Packers in 2025, and then the Ben Johnson thing.
Caleb Williams has never lost at Lambeau Field.
Yeah, we got the Lambeau set over there.
I was over there letting people know. I said, if you didn't know any facts, there's a couple of things you might not be aware of. Caleb Williams undefeated Lambeau Field.
Yeah, he now owns the Packers, all that stuff.
Yes.
But now we might actually get a rivalry, like teams on the field worth the rivalry.
Yes.
And we haven't had that in a long time.
Yes. It was often like whenever you would see the Bears and the Packers, it was like, well, it's the Bears, but it's like the old version of Ric Flair Bears. It's not like prime 80s Bears.
Yeah.
It is the guy, a little bit older.
You're still getting the woo.
You're still like, it's the C on the helmet and everything like that. The colors are the same, but it was certainly not the same team that a lot of us grew up loving and embracing and everything like that. But I think when you look at the history of the NFL and some of the things that make the NFL work, it's having great rivalries.
Yeah.
And like you get these rivalries with teams like, hey, like these teams don't like each other, but like historically, Bears-Packers has been one that like literally people do not like. Ben Johnson hit the ground running. Not even, like a lot of times when a Bears guy, a guy gets hired by Chicago, like I'm sure they handed this sheet to Eberflus and he's like, love deep dish pizza, although tavern style's great. Never have mustard or never have ketchup on a hot dog, and let's beat the Packers. I like that Ben Johnson actually went the other way and said that I am going after Matt LaFleur. I enjoy beating Matt LaFleur.
They're not buddies. It's just like, hey, I'm going to take a shot at this
What
guy.
has been? He's like, I won't even wear Lululemon. That's how much I don't like Matt LaFleur. How is Matt
I'm
LaFleur?
not going to pluck my eyebrows all year in protest.
And by the way, I was watching that playoff game. Did he give everybody a Groupon for eyebrow plucking? Because I noticed some of the other members of the staff, I'm like, what sort of stepper
Everyone's
thing
very well groomed.
is going? They're well groomed. They're the only team licensed by Lululemon. Like that is the thing. Like everybody else has got Fanatic stuff.
Yeah.
Matt LaFleur takes his stuff down to the Lulu
look
store.
good, play good.
Apparently.
So the Ben Johnson hire got Bears fans very excited.
Yes.
Are you like, is this it? I think, is this going to change everything, or are we cautiously optimistic? Or
We
like
always think
Super Bowl?
We always think it's going to change everything. Listen, you can tune in April, May, whatever, when I do my predictions. 12-5. You know it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know I'm picking us to go 12-5.
Yep.
Just be ready for it. Seth Rollins today, he said two things to me. He said, Adam, here's two things that I, Seth Rollins, want you to know. Number one, don't pick us to go 12-5 again. That never works. And number two, don't name drop me. So Seth Rollins, I will not drop your name here in this. Gosh, dang it. You're right. But the thing of it is, here's what I really like about what the Bears have done with this hire.
Yeah.
Is that they paid the money. I don't know if I was like
that was what I was most dubious that they would do. I was like, they're just going to cheap out.
Your cold takes
Yeah,
exposed.
I got.
Which is fine.
I got.
Listen, I have
not my first time, not my last.
I have I'm on there too. I'm famous on that thing. But like you were like 0% chance, and historically you would have been right. Like when the Bears were interviewing Mike McCarthy, didn't it just seem like that's who they're hiring?
Yes.
This is the barest hire of all time. Yeah. And I think for a lot of people, it's understandable why you would feel that way. So for them to go out there and spend the money, Ryan Poles has given a little bit of security. We understand now that when Kevin Warren was saying like, hey, Ryan Poles is doing this, he was actually doing it because he was letting Ben Johnson know like, no, I'm not interfering. Ryan's going to be able to make this hire. You're good. And now when you go back and kind of watch, it's kind of like watching like season 3 of Sons of Anarchy, which during the moment you might not have liked it, but when you went back and watched it all, after seeing it all unfold, you're like, oh, now this all makes sense.
Yeah.
And that's the one thing that I like is that the Bears are joining modern football.
Well, welcome to modern football then.
Thank you. It's been a long time.
Where are you? Because, you know, you also have to have the fantasy side of this. So you have to have like a fair view of who these players are in order to rank them properly. Where are you on Jordan Love?
I mean, he's good. Like he's a good player. But you know what? Over the last couple of weeks, stopped throwing interceptions, which was huge. But at the same time, they were giving up too much production to Josh Jacobs. Yeah. And so I know like this is the thing that's always dubious too. And I'm like, listen, I'm not starting Jordan Love. Here's why. Like Josh Jacobs is going to score 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And so you got to be sure. And you know, and people will be like, oh, you're just saying that. I'm like, I got Josh Jacobs as my number 2 running back. So it's not like I'm not hating on him by any stretch of the imagination. Jordan Love's a good player. And I think what's interesting with having so many years of Aaron Rodgers, of somebody who really wasn't going to take a chance. Like he just wasn't going to throw an interception. He wasn't going to do that. Jordan Love's a little bit more of a risk taker, where he's going more into the Brett Favre side of things, where it's like, he might throw a couple of picks and do whatever. But you know what? Coming out of the draft, if I go back to my draft, like this is the one thing you can always call me on. Coming out of the draft, I really did like Jordan Love. I actually thought he was going to be better than Justin Herbert. And in my pre-rankings, I'm like, I kind of like him better. The only thing that gave me pause is that his final season at Utah State, he wasn't all Mountain West. Who are the other quarterbacks in the Mountain West that you're like, this guy's better than Jordan Love? Because I remember him in college being good.
Do you know who was first team on
I have no idea.
Yeah, I think that the Caleb versus Jordan thing, that's only going to get louder.
Yeah.
And rightfully so.
Yeah, and that's what we want.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the thing, and this goes then with Jaden Daniels as well. We want to be like the AFC. The AFC is a lot of fun because you got Mahomes, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, even Justin Herbert. You can throw into that mix. The NFC's got, right now, Jalen Hurts, and that's it. So if Jaden's good, if Caleb's good, and Jordan's good, it's fine. And I think that we can like our guy and be like, because I don't think Bills fans don't long to have Patrick Mahomes. I mean, some might or whatever, because whatever. But I think like a Cincinnati fan is very comfortable with their quarterback. Yeah. I think we're going to be in a situation where all those fan bases are comfortable with their quarterback and be like, hey, our guy's good. Our guy's going to give us a chance to win. And we hate on the other guy just because we don't like the team, not because we don't like the player.
Caleb Williams, rookie season, give you reasons for pause or only optimism, or like it was everybody else's fault? Because that's like the company line, is it was everybody else's fault.
It's not. I mean, like he still threw for like 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns. For a Bears quarterback, that is one of the best seasons in history.
Low bar, but
not a great bar. You know, it's true. It's like you guys with the running backs. Like, oh my God, you had a guy who got close to double digits in touchdown. That's fine. Matt Forte would be the all-time greatest Packers running back. Right?
Well, maybe in
Paul Hornung, whatever. Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say by modern standards. Yeah, I got you. Sorry.
But here's what I'm talking about. We did great with the running backs. You guys did great with the quarterbacks. It's fine.
Yeah. Gail Sayers, Walter Payton. Like, come on. Like, yeah.
You know, Neil Anderson.
The Bears know how to do the running backs.
We're doing all right. I know that it wasn't great. It wasn't quite what we expected, but I think a lot of it had to do with the circumstances of the team, playing for 3 different offensive coordinators, 2 head coaches, and with the team being so bad. So the Hail Mary happens.
Yeah.
So Caleb doesn't get credit for engineering a winning drive. The missed field goal the first time against the Packers, he doesn't get credit for engineering a winning drive.
Right.
Minnesota, that one's a little bit iffier. That was more of a miraculous thing. Not being able to finish against the Lions, he doesn't get credit for those wins because obviously the Bears didn't win, but he still got them there.
Right.
So for me, his season would look a lot different. I mean, like you would almost make the argument, had they beaten the Commanders, the season turns out different. Washington seasons turns out different.
I think that's probably
you
true.
never know. I was on with Washington. I'm like, listen, it was like a butterfly effect. Tyreek Stevenson set a butterfly effect that got Washington to the NFC Championship game. Something that I don't think happens if that play doesn't happen. So,
but that's the biggest thing to me, because one of the things that is like one of those truisms that people love to say to get people riled up is this is why bad teams stay bad.
yeah.
And organizationally and culturally, there's a lot of things. When a head coach comes in, Ben Johnson doesn't have to just undo whatever coaching mistakes Matt Eberflus made. You've got to revamp, remake, retool a culture that is on the level with the Lions. We know their culture, the Vikings, the Packers. Like forget the talent level. Culturally, that's where I feel like they have to make up the most ground.
Yeah, and that 100%. And honestly, the Tyreek Stevenson thing, in hindsight, was actually a blessing. It's kind of like you had a leak in your kitchen, and you're like, oh, I got to change the faucet. Oh, wait, no, there's dry rot. And now the foundation's ruined. We got to fix everything, not just one thing where we're changing out a washer. We found it. Because, like, honestly, they win that game 5-2. Maybe some other win. If they get close, so they would have 5 wins. They would have been about 2 wins away from being like, well, let's see. He's progressing. It was a rookie quarterback. Let's give Matt Eberflus one last chance. Never hire Ben Johnson. It could be the same old Bears all over again. But one of the things that I really appreciate about the coaching staff that Ben Johnson is putting together is that you got Dennis Allen, who's a great defensive coordinator. James Jones was on with me earlier today, and he's like, listen, Dennis Allen is not a good head coach. He's a great defensive coordinator.
Yeah, he is.
You bring in Antoine Randall.
I was very annoyed by that hire.
Yeah, that's a bad one for you.
Yeah.
Antoine Randall is amazing. And I think Eric Bieniemy. Like 2 guys who don't take anything from anybody.
Right.
That's what this team needs. You remember, with Antoine Randall yelling at Jamison Williams on the sideline, like, why are you arguing with Tyreek Stevenson of all people? They need that kind of accountability. And I think that's one of the biggest difference makers. Beyond what Ben Johnson's going to bring X's and O's, as you say, trying to change the culture in Chicago.
Okay, so you are famous on Packers social media for a lot of things, but picking against the Packers.
How dare you?
Until you didn't.
Yeah.
And maybe you'll admit it, maybe you won't. That was a reverse jinx, be honest.
No, because I know that I hold no sway on that one. That was against when you beat the Cowboys last year, yeah?
Well, no, there was one this year at the
Oh, yeah. No, I knew that you guys were going to win that game. 100%. Because everybody was on, admittingly, I am alerted when everything's unanimous. So they will give me a tip off, hey, do you want to fade the public here or not? Sometimes I don't. Like, no. Like, that's ridiculous. I'm not taking the Browns. I'm not taking the Browns over the Ravens. You know what I'm saying? I had a feeling about the Packers, but my instinct is always to be like, Packers are going to lose. And then they let me know, like, hey, the public's on. I forget was it the 49ers?
I don't remember what the game was, honestly. I wish I could.
But I go, nobody's picking the Packers? I'm like, give me the Packers. Like, I legitimately thought initially, in a non-biased way, that they were going to win that game. You were going to win that game. And then when I found out that I could fade the public, I'm like, oh, yeah, this will be even better. And if they do lose, then they're going to be so mad at me.
Yeah, so that's like a win-win-win.
Yeah, it's the best of both worlds right there.
So if Packer fans want to find your stuff,
they know where to find me. Oh, they find me. You don't need to tell them. They know where I am. They find me all the time. Some guy drove by at my daughter's AYSO soccer game. No, his daughter was playing in another field.
In Indianapolis, Indiana this week, looking to answer some very important questions.
You are Locked On Commanders, your daily podcast on the Washington Commanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Sort of a mailbag episode here. Just arrived to Indianapolis Monday night, getting in here a little bit later in the evening. So getting this episode ready for you guys to have Tuesday morning as we get the NFL Scouting Combine rolling. Now, the players aren't going to be interviewing or doing the drills in the stadium or anything just yet. But on Tuesday, we will speak with Washington Commanders general manager Adam Peters. Wednesday is head coach Dan Quinn. And then we are supposed to be able to have the conversation with assistant general manager Lance Newmark at some point during the week here as well. So we'll have all of that information coming on down the line. So what I did is I reached out to insiders, and obviously I've got my own kind of set of questions that I want to ask these gentlemen, but I wanted to reach out to insiders and get a kind of fan perspective and say, what is it that you as Commanders fans really want to know from these three guys here this week? And some of the questions, they're not questions these guys are going to answer directly. One insider, or actually more than one insider, a couple of insiders want to know very specifically, are you going to re-sign Noah Brown? Are you going to trade John Allen? All those types of things. And certainly some of those types of questions will actually come up. But typically these guys don't want to answer those questions as directly. But there's some other ones that they will be able to answer. What I wanted to do is kind of turn this into a little bit of a mailbag / combine prep for these press conferences, not from a player standpoint, but from, again, official, head coach, general manager conversation standpoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to take some of the questions that were presented for Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, Lance Newmark, and I'm going to see if I can answer them in my own words, not trying to predict what they're going to say, but just more so kind of giving you my view from my foxhole here. Again, your friend covering the Washington Commanders for you here in Indianapolis. So first question we want to get to here is wanting to know how much flexibility the team feels like they have, or if they need to go best player available, or if they need to fill a need. Now, this is a very kind of football theological type of question, right? Everybody's got their own sorts of different answers. In fact, my son came here to Indianapolis with me. I was having a conversation with him about this topic, and he said he believes that if you have needs, you need to go into the draft, you need to fill those needs. And I told him, okay, cool. I'm a best player available type of guy, which may not necessarily fill the most important need every round, but you will end up getting a strong roster. And the truth of the matter is, there really is no wrong answer. We're all going to have our opinions on how this should be done. But at the end of the day, there are teams that are built by front offices that absolutely target their needs. They hammer their needs. We need a new offensive tackle. We are going to go get a new offensive tackle. We need an improved defensive line. We're going to continue drafting first-round D linemen until we find ourselves a Hall of Famer centerpiece that we can build around. We're going to just keep hammering that home. And then there are teams that just go out there and they go best player available. And then sometimes those things shift depending on what situation the team is in. Are we in complete rebuild mode? Do we have a lot of fixtures on our team? We just need to kind of plug and play some contributors here and there. It kind of is ever morphing, right? But overall, my opinion on best player available and picking for team needs is they kind of go hand in hand, right? So if you're looking at number 29, for example, if the best player available in the NFL draft to pick number 29 is a quarterback, if you're the Washington Commanders, you're clearly not going to go with a quarterback, right? Because you have Jaden Daniels. Even if that quarterback may be better someday than Jaden Daniels. Jaden Daniels had the rookie season, the type of rookie season, I should say, where you're not going to draft a quarterback, right? Like we've seen first-round quarterbacks drafted, and then 2 years later or so, their team is looking at another quarterback again. This is not one of those situations. So even if the best player available at number 29, which it won't be this year, but go with me on the analogy, even if the best player available at number 29 is a quarterback, if you're the Washington Commanders in this situation, you're not going quarterback. So even though I say I'm a best player available type of person, that does have kind of some influence, some contextual matters to go in there, right? So I think those things are kind of important to look at. Now, going back to last year's draft, and going back specifically to Assistant General Manager Lance Newmark, he in his post-draft press conference, he talked about how all of them, the scouts, the personnel, Adam Peters, Dan Quinn, all of the coaching staff, everybody, they all went into the draft process looking to get commanders, players that fit that commander's role. That's going to come up again later here in this episode, in this conversation. And the way that Lance Newmark rather put it was they went out looking for players who possess the same core beliefs as the rest of the organization. Quote, we added a lot of good players and a lot of players that we believe in that believe in what we believe in. So, end quote. So that kind of is going to influence that best player available, right? Because when you're hearing the Washington Commanders speak, and Lance wasn't the only person to kind of talk about this kind of stuff, best player available isn't necessarily just an athletic measurement. It's not just a college stat production measurement. It's a mentality. It's a character measurement, right? It's who the man is beyond the pads, beyond the stat box, right? And those are things that us as media, we're not going to really get to dive into a lot here at the NFL Scouting Combine. We don't get to go sit in the meeting rooms and we don't get to go sit here and interview the players outside the podium. And at the podium, it's all kind of sanitized. It's all really, you can't really get into the nuts and bolts of who a guy is really. Typically, if you find out who a guy is at the podium here in Indianapolis, it's not a good thing. Typically, it's a guy who's kind of putting his foot in his mouth, and maybe he's going to regret some of the comments that he made at a later date. So we're not going to get at that. But what you have to do is you've got to find the right people, right? So that's basically what Lance Newmark is saying is best player available is the way that the Washington Commanders are going to go, and it has to be about the best fit. The need certainly is important, and the need could be a tiebreaker. But if there's one player, let's go back to last year's draft, Johnny Newton in the second round. If there's one player who is clearly a better fit for the organization over a guy like defensive lineman T'Vondre Sweat, defensive lineman Braden Fisk, defensive back Cooper DeJean, offensive lineman Jackson Powers-Johnson, linebacker Edgerrin Cooper, defensive back Tyler Newman, defensive tackle Mason Smith, defensive lineman Chris Jenkins, if Johnny Newton fits the belief system and has the talent to be in that conversation already, then you take him over guys who might fill a bigger need, right? D lineman, D tackle, not exactly considered a huge need coming to the NFL draft last year, unless you were going to trade John Allen. Conversation we continue to have this offseason. But you might take a guy in that position because he fills what your organization needs more than he fills what your roster needs. And even in a position group where you're going to fill it, you're going to roll the dice with a guy who had surgery 3 months prior to the NFL draft instead of taking a defensive back like Cooper DeJean, who fills a position that you needed to fill. In fact, you are going to fill later with Mikey Sainer still. And I don't know that the Commanders would have gone, well, obviously the Commanders wouldn't have gone Cooper DeJean over Mikey because we traded out of that spot for the Eagles to go get Cooper DeJean, right? So you see the Washington Commanders making decisions, and obviously somewhere in that room, Mikey Sainer still fit the thread of what a Commanders player is going to be under this regime, more at least at the time than they believed than Cooper DeJean did. Doesn't mean Cooper DeJean doesn't fit, it just means that somewhere in that room they felt like a guy like Mikey Sainer still would fit better, which is what helped inspire the Washington Commanders to move on, not take Cooper DeJean, take the trade, move back, and eventually get a guy like Mikey Sainer still and a guy like Johnny Newton, who, again, going back to early conversations after the first round last year, ahead of the second round last year, Johnny Newton viewed a lot as kind of a luxury type pick. And even today, he's a second-year, second-round draft pick in the NFL who would be your third D lineman, defensive tackle, I should say, on your depth chart. A lot of people would say that's a little bit of a luxury pick even to this day. But again, it's about setting those foundational pieces. So best player available, team need. The team needs good people. The team needs people who believe in the same things they believe in. So it kind of fits the whole thing. And that's the best player available because he fits the mentality of the Washington Commanders. It all kind of goes hand in hand. So really at the end of the day, we're all kind of talking about the same thing. We just may not be talking about it in the same context.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get internet than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Tuesday night has the game everyone is talking about on the docket. Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers are 8-point favorites at home versus the Dallas Mavericks. Elsewhere in the evening, the Cavs are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Orlando. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make everyone want more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
A comeback for the ages.
You are Locked On Timberwolves, your daily Minnesota Timberwolves podcast.
This was crazy. The Wolves came out looking relatively flat. They missed a lot of shots early, and that was the biggest issue. And, that happened against OKC early in the game. Remember, they played the same team less than 24 hours ago at Target Center. A tip that was 8:30 Sunday night. They turn around and fly to Oklahoma City and play at 7 the following night against the same team, the best team in the NBA, by my estimation, the best team in the NBA, certainly the best team in the West. And like Sunday night at Target Center, the Wolves came out a bit flat, but the offensive rebounding kept them in it. And, it was still a close game early. In this game, not not so much. OKC was only up 4 at the end of the first quarter, but the second quarter they really started to pull away with Anthony Edwards on the bench, and it went from shots not falling for Minnesota to just being outworked by OKC, and that was more apparent like late third, very early fourth quarter. It felt like OKC was just playing harder, and they were getting the bounces. Like this I think was an early fourth quarter play. Nikhil gets a great block at the rim. I don't even remember who he blocked, and the ball bounces right out to a 3-point shooter for a wide open three. Like those types of things, the back taps from OKC were all finding hands of 3-point shooters. I mean, OKC finished this game with 16 offensive rebounds. They had only 7 on Sunday against Minnesota. I think Minnesota won the offensive rebound battle 15-7 on Sunday. OKC won it in this game 16-11. Second chance opportunities abounded for OKC. Gilgeous-Alexander had 8 free throw attempts in the first half alone, and he was up to 14 at the midway point of the third quarter. And it just felt like he was going to get every call. I know the Wolves ended up shooting more free throws. So if you're a Thunder fan listening to this and you're up in arms, hang on. I'm gonna get to it. I'm gonna get to the free throws. But the Timberwolves just like eventually, even when it looked like they were down and out, they were down 25 late in the third quarter. 22 to start the fourth, 24 about a minute and change into the fourth quarter, and it looked like the Wolves were down and out. Anthony Edwards is out of the game. Remember, he rests the beginning of fourth quarters. And it felt like this thing was over. Understandably so. But then Nikhil Alexander-Walker starts to do some stuff like he did Sunday. TJ Shannon, Rob Dillingham, Jalen Clark's on the floor at this point. McDaniels makes a tough shot. TJ Shannon makes a tough shot. We're middle stages of the quarter. The Wolves get it down to 16 after a Nas bucket with just under 7 minutes to play. When Anthony Edwards comes back into the game, that's actually right when he came back into the game. It was right before that. So they were down. The Wolves were down 18 when Ant came back into the game with a little over 7 minutes to play. I was a little surprised. I thought maybe Chris Finch would leave him on the bench. He comes back in. The Wolves get it to 16 after an and one opportunity from TJ Shannon. Couple possessions later, Ant hits a couple of free throws. It's now a 14-point game. The Thunder don't score. The Wolves score again, TJ Shannon. It's now a 12-point game. And then, with a 12-point game, the Wolves get another stop. Ant comes down and takes, like, a semi-ill-advised jumper from... So I was at this game in OKC and attended as a fan with my family. And Thunder fans, it's a whole, I'm not going to go down that path, but there was a guy sitting next to me who, when Ant shot the ball, goes, "Oh, that's a terrible shot." And look, on the one hand, Ant shooting a step back in semi-transition straight on is not usually a bad shot. That's just kind of what Ant does. And this was like momentum swinging. We've scored a bunch of points in a row. And Ant's so good at that shot. Well, he did miss it. And so, of course, it looks like a bad shot because he missed it, but it's not something he doesn't do all the time, right? SGA comes back, though, and scores in transition. The Wolves are now back down 14. So it could have been a 9-point game with just over 4 to play. It's back to 14 points with 4 minutes to play. Right after the timeout, Ant just slips and loses the ball. So consecutive bad Anthony Edwards possessions. The Thunder score on the other end. And now it's a 16-point game. Ant comes out of the game. So Ant comes out. Wolves are down 16 to 3:41 to play. The game's all but over. Still on the floor, though, TJ Shannon, Nikhil Alexander-Walker, Rob Dillingham, and then a couple of starters, Naz Reid and Jaden McDaniels. And the Wolves just don't give up. TJ Shannon takes it to the bucket because that's what he does. Runs over Alex Caruso. He gets called for a shooting foul. The Thunder challenge it. It's a bad challenge. He's sliding, and it's a glancing blow from Shannon. So calls not overturned. Calls upheld. TJ Shannon makes the free throws. Nikhil makes a pair of free throws. And then it turns into the Wolves aggressively. It wasn't like a typical, we'll wait until Shai's Gilgeous-Alexander is, 26 feet from the bucket and we'll send 2 at him. We won't wait for a screen and blitz. We're just going to put 2 on the ball straight up when he crosses the timeline and basically build a wall with the other 3 guys. It essentially is a 2-3 zone with 2 guys guarding the ball and 3 guys guarding the other 4 guys on the floor. And somebody's going to be open. And credit Shai for making the pass more often than not. His teammates could not knock down their mostly open jumpers. And the Wolves did a good job. We have to credit the Wolves for scrambling, for, the back half rotation was very good and at least getting some decent contests. But like consecutive possessions here, I'm going to skip over what the Wolves did. Jalen Williams misses a 3-pointer. Kaysen Wallace misses a three-pointer. Next Thunder possession, Alex Caruso misses a layup, gets into the paint, misses it. Next Thunder possession, TJ Shannon blocks Caruso at the rim, which was a great play. Next Thunder possession, TJ Shannon blocks Jalen Williams. Next Thunder possession, Alex Caruso misses a three. Next Thunder possession, Aaron Wiggins misses a three. It was just a cavalcade of missed three-pointers that were mostly open, and there was a bit of regression to the mean that needed to happen, because remember how well OKC shot the ball on Sunday. And I said this on the show. I said, look, OKC was over 50% from three. A lot of those looks were open, but still that number is crazy. Well, guess what? In this game, OKC finished 15 of 49, 30.6% from three. 2 of 8 from J-Dub, 2 of 8 from Kaysen Wallace, 1 of 6 from Aaron Wiggins, 1 of 4 from Alex Caruso, and all 3 of those misses came late in this game when the Thunder were trying to put it away. And SGA became a little bit more passive. And I'm sure there was some level of, hey, we're up 15, we're up 14, we're up 16, whatever. I'm going to just kick it to these guys. If we knock down 1 or 2 of these, we're going to win. Everyone's happy. And my teammates get involved. Well, they didn't make the open threes. And then the Wolves kept scoring on their end of the floor. And this thing turned into a real game down the stretch. I'm not going to go completely possession by possession. I already took you through all the Thunder misses, but Rob Dillingham made a couple of really tough shots. Jaden McDaniels got to the line a couple of times. He did it after a scramble offensive rebound. He gets the line, knocks down a couple of big free throws, 51 seconds left. The Thunder miss on their end of the floor. Aaron Wiggins misses. The Wolves call a timeout. Oh, sorry, this is when the scramble happened. McDaniels missed a shot, probably could have been a foul. The Wolves get the ball back, and McDaniels is fouled, makes the bucket, fouled by Caruso, makes the free throw. It's now a tie game with 11 seconds left. And Jalen Clark, this is going to get, I think, glossed over because of the ant block, and the ant block is nuts, and we'll talk about it. The ant block in overtime was absolutely insane, and that's really what cemented this game for Minnesota. But in regulation, at the end of regulation with 11 seconds left, remember, this is a tie game. They don't need a three. And Shai Gilgeous-Alexander gets into the paint. Jalen Clark shuts him down. Really outstanding job defensively from Jalen Clark, and he was great against him in the Wolves win over the Thunder before the All-Star break, and then again before he got hurt on Sunday night. Thankful that Jalen Clark was able to play in this game. It certainly looked much more serious on Sunday when he was injured, but he played and he shut down SGA on that final possession of regulation. And then Nikhil actually almost hits a floater just inside the three-point line at the end of regulation. It goes to overtime. I want to talk about how Chris Finch called the game down the stretch and in overtime, the rotations for the Wolves. I want to talk about Ant's block. I want to talk about, certainly we'll get to studs and duds toward the end. There's so much to unpack in this game, but a really fun finish for sure. And the Wolves' defensive adjustment going from playing man-to-man, blitzing and pick and roll with SGA to mixing in some zone and then turning it into a strict, just straight double of SGA, which basically was a zone for the rest of the guys on the floor. Really impressive coaching job for Minnesota. And
when the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get internet than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Tuesday night has the game everyone is talking about on the docket. Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers are 8-point favorites at home versus the Dallas Mavericks. Elsewhere in the evening, the Cavs are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Orlando. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make everyone more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Who says he has to pass, man? Nikola Jokic, 19 assists, a career high in a big win over the Indiana Pacers.
You are Locked On Nuggets, your daily Denver Nuggets podcast.
Denver Nuggets win against the Indiana Pacers. Final score 125-116. Really appreciated the way that Denver approached this game. Really thought that they did a lot of good things in this one. on this show we're going to talk about is the Zeke Nnaji Renaissance real? Aaron Gordon's jump shot just continues to shine. Why does Nikola Jokic have to shoot if he's going to set career highs in assists? But first, we'll just go over the win, go over some of the notes from this particular game. Just really, really impressed by the way the Nuggets handled themselves in this one. I thought that the Nuggets would be a little bit more aggressive in this game. I thought that they would try to get back to their roots just a little bit, and they mostly did. 74 points in the paint was a very impressive number for Denver. They had just 30 points in the paint in the game against the Los Angeles Lakers on Saturday. Obviously, completely different defenses, completely different ways that the opposing team was scheming against Denver. And you saw the way that Denver decided to attack this one. Jokic was operating in the post. He was operating at the top of the key. He was outletting in transition, doing a lot of crazy things with the ball in his hands. And there was some discourse online about, hey, why isn't he shooting as much? Why isn't he shooting a bunch? He should be trying to get into the flow. He should be trying to get back on the glass and looking for his own shots, doing everything that he needs to do to get himself going. And I couldn't disagree more. I thought the way that Jokic handled this game was incredibly impressive. He doesn't have to he can dictate the game. He can do a lot of different things and does not necessarily have to be like the most impactful scorer all the time in order for the Nuggets to get a great shot every single time. And when they weren't turning the ball over, they got great shots. Denver had 39 assists in this one. Obviously, when you put up 125, things are going pretty well. 36 points in the first quarter, 28 in the second, 36 in the third, 25 in the fourth. They slowed down a little bit, but they were doing great for the most part. They I think, approached this game in a pretty impressive way. 8 of 21 from 3 as a team. Jamal Murray goes 4 of 4 from 3, 16 points. 6 of 12 from the field, but 4 of 4 from 3 was very impressive. All 4 of those, by the way, came in like the first 14 minutes of the game before he fouled himself out with foul trouble, had 3 fouls in like with 10 minutes left to go in the second quarter. So Nuggets, they sat him for a little bit. He didn't really get back into the flow, but he didn't have to. Everybody was performing, I think, pretty well. And Aaron Gordon, he got into the flow early as well, though he also dealt with foul trouble. It was kind of interesting to see how Denver handled that. 25 points for Aaron Gordon, 11 of 17 from the field, 2 of 4 from 3. And he played big. He played big against Pascal Siakam on both ends of the floor. Aaron Gordon thoroughly outplayed Pascal. And that's a great sign when you're outplaying an Eastern Conference All-Star at your same position. And those guys, I thought, really set the tone for Denver, Jamal and AG. And it allowed Jokic to kind of work his way into the game without necessarily having to make a statement. Nobody has to make a statement when you're playing great basketball. And I didn't know how Denver was going to respond. I thought that would be pretty good, but nobody ever fully knows how you're going to respond when you're challenged the way that they were challenged against the Lakers on Saturday. And they come out, first game of this road trip, and I think make a pretty nice statement. They do pretty well, get themselves into the flow, and I think that there's just a lot to like about how they handled this themselves. Jokic on the night, 18 points, 19 assists, 9 rebounds. One of the rebounds disappeared. There was some skepticism about whether he should have had a 10th rebound or not. It looks like they took away one of his steals. He had 4 at one point. It's now down to 3. But say Levy, 39 minutes for him, 9 of 14 from the field. He ultimately got going as a scorer as the game went on, but he didn't have to get himself going immediately. And I just love the way that he approached the game, dictated exactly what was happening against the Indiana Pacers on a consistent basis. Miles Turner could not guard him one-on-one. There was a really impressive possession where Miles was trying to body him in the middle of the paint. The Nuggets designed a play where Jamal Murray entered the ball into Jokic kind of at the dotted circle, like about 12 feet away from the basket. Jokic backs down once, fakes like a little bit of a fake with the going to his left, and then spins all the way back to his right, finishes with the left hand, left Miles Turner in the dust. And when you're a passer, when you're somebody who can see the floor, there's very little reason for the opposing team to W in that situation because you're going to find somebody right under the basket. And so it was interesting to see the way that those two teams, Indiana and Los Angeles, defended Jokic. Obviously, Indiana's game plan, not as strong as the Lakers' game plan. And this wasn't a very impressive performance from them, I don't think. But Denver took advantage. They played, I think, a very good game. Overall, Jokic was in control pretty much the entire time. And the Nuggets fed off of that. Gordon, of course, had his 25. Christian Brown attacked the paint with reckless abandon. I counted them up. He had 11 shots out of his 11 in the restricted area. Pretty impressive stuff. He was not going to settle. He was not going to take threes. He was not going to take mid-ranges. He was not going to take shots in the paint outside of the restricted area. He was very aggressive, going right to the rim. That's what you like to see from him, especially he's kind of started he started the second half a little bit slower post All-Star break. And he had been finishing. He had been struggling a little bit with his finishing, but I thought he performed extremely well in this one, really took advantage of the fact that the Nuggets were trying to get out in transition, were trying to attack the paint, and the size advantage that they had across the board in this game. Like Pascal Siakam's 6'9", but he's pretty skinny. Aaron Gordon made him look kind of small. Jokic, of course, makes Miles Turner look small. He's a skinnier center. Aaron Nesmith was their starting small forward. Michael Porter made him look small. He shot 8 of 12 from 2-point range and didn't need. Actually, was it 8 of 12? Do I have that right? Yes, it was 8 of 12 from 2-point range and didn't really need to take a whole bunch of threes. He made his first 3 of the game, but then didn't really need it after that. And Murray, despite the fact that he was like very big and like was hitting 4 of 4 from 3, also was attacking the paint, also was attacking in the mid-range, doing some pretty good things. He slowed down a little bit, but I don't really worry about it too much. But then Christian Brown being defended by Tyrese Halliburton for much of the evening. 37 minutes, 7 of 11 from the field. Yes, Halliburton had a pretty good game. 5 of 10 from 3, 15 assists to 1 turnover. Halliburton is very, very good. But it just didn't matter because Indiana could not stop the Nuggets. They couldn't slow them down in any way, shape, or form. And it was just very impressive the way that the Nuggets handled their business. There were 10 guys that played tonight. I'll get into the bench a little bit in the second segment when we come back. But there were a lot of impressive performances. This was a good team win and was very impressed by the way the Nuggets handled their business overall.
When the game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get internet than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth-quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. I love using FanDuel's live betting feature because it keeps every moment of the game exciting, whether I'm backing my team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch 3. I never feel like I missed my chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Tuesday night has the game everyone is talking about on the docket. Luka Doncic and the Los Angeles Lakers are 8-point favorites at home versus the Dallas Mavericks. Elsewhere in the evening, the Cavs are 6.5-point favorites on the road in Orlando. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make everyone want more. FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Shaq Thompson was informed by the Panthers that his time in Carolina is over.
You are Locked On Panthers, your daily Carolina Panthers podcast.
Now that Shaq Thompson is done in Carolina, what does that mean for the Panthers linebacker room? And it feels pretty straightforward that Trevin Wallace and Josie Jewell are going to be the starting linebackers in 2025. Of course, got the free agency period coming up. I would not imagine that linebacker is going to be a spot that Carolina is looking to find a starter in when you consider that Ejiro Evero is back once again as the Panthers defensive coordinator. Go back a couple years ago to when Ejiro was the DC under first-year head coach Nathaniel Hackett in Denver. Josie Jewell was still playing linebacker for the Broncos and had the best year of his career statistically under Ejiro Evero. And last year had his ups and downs as he struggled early in the season. On that same day that Shaq Thompson tore his Achilles against Cincinnati, Josie went out with a groin and a thigh kind of issue as well. So that caused him to miss a couple of weeks. He came back against Denver on the road, started playing well the next couple of weeks after that, then suffered a season-ending injury and missed some time there as well. So an up and down season for Josie Jewell, but looking at his contract, kind of hard for Carolina to want to get rid of him. If you cut him right now, pre-June 1, post-June 1, doesn't really matter. They're only going to save $1 million, and then they're going to have $6.6 million dead money. So their true out in his contract is next offseason in 2026, where the Panthers would have to take on $2.3 million of dead money, but then would save $5.5 million of cap savings that they decided to move on after next year, with Josie Jewell starting again, I would imagine, at the inside linebacker spot next to Trevin Wallace, who, looking at his deal right now as a second-year player picked in the third round of the 2024 NFL draft, I mean, there's no reason they're going to get rid of him. I mean, the cap savings are next to nothing. The dead money is next to nothing. That's somebody that obviously Carolina is trying to build around defensively. Now, primarily, they want to build around Derek Brown, who's been paid a boatload of money as one of the top interior defensive tackles in the entirety of the NFL. And then J.C. Horn, they have invested financially by giving him the fifth-year option. But I would imagine that in the coming days, weeks, months, maybe, they're going to go out there and extend him and make him one of the highest paid, I would think, top 5 highest paid cornerbacks in the entirety of the NFL. So those two guys clearly are the players that Carolina wants to build around defensively. Trevin Wallace, as someone who's going to be 22 this upcoming season, he is also one of those young pieces that they should want to build around as he takes over and has the opportunity to be that next guy inside at linebacker for Carolina. We've had him through the entirety of the Panthers organization. They had Sam Mills, John Beeson, Dan Morgan himself, who had an outstanding Super Bowl back in Super Bowl 38 and that heartbreaking loss against the Patriots down there in Houston, Kuechly, Thomas Davis, Shaq Thompson now. And even though you may not look at Shaq in the same light as TD and Luke and even Sam Mills, of course, as those would be, I feel, pretty inarguable, the 3 best linebackers in Panthers franchise history. Please let me know if you feel like someone else should be in that top 3, but Luke, there's no question. Sam, there's no question. Do you want to swap somebody else in there instead of TD? I mean, let me know at Julian Counts over on Twitter and at Blue Sky if you want to do that. But I feel like those are the top 3 guys as far as just, production and what they meant to the organization. Now Trevin Wallace steps into that position and has a chance. Like, I don't think Shaq Thompson made the sort of impact that those men, Luke, TD, I mean, hell, Sam Mills, keep pounding. Like, it's going to be an everlasting legacy he's going to have here in Carolina. The only player with the statue, the only statue out there in front of Bank of America Stadium, and rightfully so for what he was able to achieve in his time in Carolina, both as a player and later on as a coach, where, of course, the keep pounding moniker came from. I don't imagine Shaq can really be in the same light as those guys, but this is a chance for Trevin Wallace, who is coming into a team that has a chance to ascend. And you look at what Bryce Young was able to do offensively at the quarterback spot in the final 9 games and some of the young weapons they have around him as well, and the offensive line finally being fixed. Offensively, you feel pretty good about the direction that they're headed. Will they be a top 5, top 10 offense coming up in 2025? I need to see a lot more developing this offseason to feel that way, but they have a chance to be a top half of the NFL offense, which has not really been the case. I mean, coincidentally, since Joe Brady had Teddy Bridgewater, they were calling plays and doing that whole situation back in 2020 during the pandemic. So the offense is heading in the right direction. Defensively, like, they need to pick up the slack in order for this team to really be competitive. And I think the issue with Shaq was, while he was here back in 2015, when the Panthers went, as we all know, 15-1, had an amazing season. He was here in 2017, the last time this organization went to the playoffs. So once he was the guy, one of the team captains, it was not a great team in 2020 or in 2021 rather. In 2022, they were right there on the cusp, but didn't happen. Then 2023 was an embarrassment. He missed most of that season. This past season did not get up to the greatest starts. He was injured, wasn't a part of the turnaround in the second half of the year. You got to be a part of some of these great teams in order to really be remembered fondly. And yes, you can be a really good player and lay it all out there on the line, and fans will respect you. But the guys that you're always going to love and cherish are the guys who are part of winning teams. The lean years, they may build character, but I do think a lot of people in this fan base are over the character building. So let's see whether Trevin Wallace can be a part of the restoration of what it means to be a Carolina Panther and what this organization can be. And, putting fear back in that logo, like Dan Morgan told us over a year ago when he took over as Panthers general manager and president of football operations. So Trevin Wallace steps into that position as a clear-cut starter. I would say the same thing about Josie Jewell. And even looking at the linebacker free agency market, now Shaq Thompson, of course, is a part of that. We already know he's not going to be back here. Levante David is the first guy I see on over the cap, and he's 35 years old. Trey Greenlaw, someone who came back off of an Achilles tear. I don't know about that one. Bobby Wagner, he does have ties to a lot of these guys who were from Seattle, but he's also 35 and coming off of a solid year up in Washington. So we'll see what he decides to do. But it's not the most overwhelming free agency class. Now, Zach Bond would be the name that you would probably be yelling at me right now. Go get him. The Eagles would seem to be the team that would be the favorite to land him again after they won the Super Bowl and he was an all-pro. You get Zach Bond, then he's going to be certainly slotted in there at a starting spot. And just thinking about your future, you probably want Trevin in there, but it depends if he can beat out Josie Jewell. But I think that it's pretty clear right now, looking at things on February 25th, as we close out the month in a couple of days, that the Panthers linebacker situation is going to be Josie Jewell and Trevin Wallace starting on the inside. And then they're going to have to go out there, find some depth there experience-wise. And he brought it up briefly when we were looking at the combine this week and some prospects to look at in some positions that wouldn't hate or could make sense for Carolina to try to address through the draft. Linebacker could be one of them. I don't know if you want to take another linebacker in the third round. I don't know if you want to take a linebacker certainly there in the second round at 57. But you're going to have to find somebody to replace Josie Jewell. Do you wait next offseason? You go ahead and get it this offseason and have that player develop in this scheme, even though great chance this scheme is not the same scheme Carolina's running in 2026 with Jerry Rivero as a DC or not as a DC. We'll see what they decide to do. But Shaq Thompson, of course, no longer in Carolina. Trevin Wallace, Josie Jewell, they're now going to take over as starting inside linebackers. At least that would be my assumption at this point in time in the offseason as Panthers focus on the draft this week and then get real prepared for what they want to do as far as free agency goes and trying to attack that.